Let me tell you something that most people are not prepared to hear, something that will either set you free or make you deeply uncomfortable. And either way, it is the truth. And the truth is this: no one is coming to save you. No one is coming to rescue you. No one is sitting somewhere in this world waiting for the right moment to step in and hand you everything you have been dreaming about. That person does not exist. That fairy tale was written for children, and you are not a child anymore. You are an adult. You are a grown human being standing on this earth with a mind, with a body, with a voice, and with a choice. And the moment you fully accept that no one is coming, truly accept it deep in your bones, that is the exact moment your real life begins. Now, I am not saying this to discourage you. I am saying this to liberate you. Because as long as you are waiting, as long as you are looking around the room, looking at your family, looking at your friends, looking at your government, looking at your employer, looking at anyone other than yourself, you are a prisoner. You are locked in a cell, and the key is hanging right around your own neck, and you have been too busy blaming the walls to ever look down and see it. That is where most people live. They live in that place of perpetual waiting. They wait for the right conditions. They wait for someone to open the door. They wait for permission. And I am here today to tell you, stop waiting. Stop it right now, because no one is going to give you permission to live your life. You have to give it to yourself. Let us talk about why this illusion exists in the first place. Why do so many people believe that someone else is going to come along and change their circumstances? Why do we grow up believing that life is something that happens to us rather than something we actively build? The answer is simple. It is because from the very beginning of our lives, someone else was doing it for us. Someone else fed us. Someone else clothed us. Someone else made the decisions. Someone else told us what was right and what was wrong. And somewhere along the way, that pattern got imprinted so deeply into our minds that even when we became adults, even when we gained the full capacity to think, to decide, to act, a part of us still believed that someone else was supposed to be running the show, that someone else was supposed to have the plan, that someone else was supposed to fix what was broken. But here's what nobody tells you when you cross that line from childhood into adulthood. There is no handoff ceremony. There is no moment where someone taps you on the shoulder and says, all right, here is your life. Here is the blueprint. Here are the instructions. No, you wake up one morning and you realize this is it. This is your life. And the decisions you make from this point forward are entirely, completely, 100% yours. And that realization is terrifying for most people. It is absolutely terrifying, because with that realization comes responsibility. And responsibility is the one thing that so many human beings have been running from their entire lives. I have seen it 1,000 times. I have seen brilliant people, people with talent, people with intelligence, people with every gift in the world, and they sit there and they wait. They wait for the promotion that someone else is supposed to give them. They wait for the opportunity that someone else is supposed to create. They wait for the miracle that someone else is supposed to deliver. And when the miracle does not come, when the promotion does not arrive, when the opportunity never materializes, they sit there and they say, life is unfair. The world is against me. Nobody ever does anything for me. And I understand that frustration. I understand it deeply, but I also know, and you know it too if you are being honest with yourself, that the world does not owe you a single thing, not one thing. Now let us talk about responsibility. Real responsibility. Not the kind that people talk about when they say, oh, I am a responsible person. No. I mean the kind of responsibility that changes everything. The kind that says, I am the author of my story. I am the architect of my destiny. Whatever happens in my life from this moment forward, the victories and the defeats, the breakthroughs and the setbacks, I own all of it. Every single piece of it. And that is not a burden. Do you understand that? That is not a burden. That is power. That is the most incredible, life-changing power that exists on this planet. Think about it for a moment. If someone else is responsible for your happiness, then someone else controls your happiness. If someone else is responsible for your success, then someone else controls your success. If someone else is responsible for your future, then you are at the mercy of someone else's decisions, someone else's timing, someone else's priorities. You become a puppet. You become a passenger. You become someone who is simply carried along by the current of life, hoping, just hoping that it takes you somewhere good. But the moment you say, no, I am responsible. I am the one. It starts with me and it ends with me. The moment you say that, you become the captain of the ship. You become the one holding the wheel, and suddenly, for the first time in your life, you have real, genuine control over where you are going. I want you to sit with that for a second. Real control, not the illusion of control, not the fantasy that if you just wish hard enough or pray long enough, everything will fall into place. I am talking about the kind of control that comes from action, from movement, from deciding what you want, making a plan, and then doing the work day after day, hour after hour to make it happen. That is where your power lives, not in your wishes, not in your prayers, not in your complaints, in your actions, in your decisions, in the things you actually do when you wake up in the morning and face the day. Now here's the part that is going to sting a little bit, and I want you to stay with me because this is crucial. I want you to think about your life right now. Right this very moment. Think about where you are. Think about what you have accomplished. Think about what you have not accomplished. Think about the gap between where you are and where you want to be. And now, and this is the important part, I want you to look in the mirror. Not a literal mirror necessarily, though that works too. I mean, I want you to look inside yourself. I want you to ask yourself the hardest question there is. The question that most people will do anything at all, to avoid asking. And that question is this: is my life exactly where it is because of the choices I have made? Is this where I am because of the actions I have taken or failed to take? Is this the result of my decisions, my habits, my effort, or the lack thereof? And I know that question is painful. I know it hurts to look at that, because when you look at that honestly, truly honestly, you will find that the majority of where you are right now has very little to do with other people and almost everything to do with you. The person who did not read the books, the person who did not develop the skills, the person who did not show up consistently, the person who made excuses instead of making progress, the person who waited instead of acting. That person is you. That person has been you. And that is not an indictment. That is not a punishment. That is simply an observation. And observations are incredibly powerful because observations are the beginning of change. You see, as long as you point the finger at someone else, as long as you blame your parents, your teachers, your boss, your circumstances, your economy, your bad luck, as long as you keep doing that, nothing will ever change. Because you are giving away your power, you are handing over the one thing that could actually transform your life, and you are handing it to someone who does not even know you have it. The blame game is the most dangerous game in the world because it feels good in the moment. It feels satisfying to say, it is not my fault. It feels validating, but it is a trap. It is a beautiful, seductive trap that keeps you exactly where you are forever. Let us talk about excuses, because I have heard them all. I have heard every single one of them, and I have probably made most of them myself at some point in my life. I do not have enough time. I do not have enough money. I was not born with the right talents. I did not go to the right school. I did not grow up in the right neighborhood. Nobody in my family ever succeeded, so why should I? The economy is bad. The timing is wrong. I am too old. I am too young. I am too this. I am too that. And here's the thing about excuses. They are incredibly convincing. They sound logical. They sound reasonable. They sound like the truth, but they are not the truth. They are stories. They are narratives that we build inside our minds to justify staying exactly where we are. They are the bridges we burn so that we never have to cross the river. They are the locks we put on the door so that we never have to face what is on the other side. Now, I am not going to stand here and pretend that life is perfectly fair. It is not. Some people are born into wealth. Some people are born into poverty. Some people have every advantage in the world handed to them on a silver platter, and some people have to claw their way out of a hole before they even get to the starting line. I am not denying that. That is real. Those are real circumstances. But here is what I want you to understand, and this is absolutely critical. Your circumstances are not your destiny. They are your starting point. They are your chapter 1, but they are not your ending. They are not your final page. They do not determine how your story ends unless you let them. The people who make it, and I'm not talking about luck, I am talking about the people who truly, deliberately, intentionally build something extraordinary with their lives. Those people did not succeed because their circumstances were perfect. They succeeded in spite of their circumstances. They succeeded because they looked at everything that was stacked against them and they said, so what? I am still going to do it. I am still going to find a way. I am still going to make this happen. And that attitude, that refusal to be defeated by the conditions you were given, that is where greatness lives. So let us talk about the decision, because everything starts with a decision, not with action, with a decision, not with talent, with a decision, not with luck, not with timing, not with the stars aligning, with a single powerful, life-altering decision. The decision to say, I am done waiting, I am done hoping, I am done wishing, I am going to do this myself. Now that decision sounds simple, does it not? It sounds like something you could make in a moment, and in a way you can, but do not be deceived. That decision is not just a thought. That decision is not just a feeling of motivation that you get when you watch an inspiring video or read a powerful book. That decision is a commitment. It is a covenant that you make with yourself. It is a line in the sand that says, from this point forward, I am different. From this point forward, I take ownership. From this point forward, no one else gets to decide what my life looks like. And that commitment has to be renewed every single day, every single morning when you wake up, because the world will try to pull you back. The world will whisper to you, just wait a little longer. Someone will come along, something will change. You do not have to do anything. And if you listen to that voice, if you let that voice win, you will find yourself at the end of your life looking back at all the years you spent waiting for a rescue that never came. I have seen too many people reach that point. I have seen too many people arrive at the end of the road and realize with absolute clarity, the kind of clarity that only comes too late, that they were the one. They were always the one. They were always the person who could have changed everything, and they chose not to. Not because they could not, because they did not decide to. And that is the saddest story in the world. Not the story of someone who tried and failed. The story of someone who never tried at all. And I refuse to let that be your story. I refuse to let that be the ending of your chapter, because you are here, you are listening, you are alive. And that means the decision has not been made yet. The book has not been closed, the final page has not been written. You still have time. You still have breath in your body and fire in your spirit and the ability to choose differently starting right now. And that window of possibility is the most precious thing in the world. Do not waste it by continuing to wait for someone who is never going to come. Now, once you make that decision, once you truly commit to doing this yourself, the next thing you have to face is the work. And I want to be honest with you about the work because so many people in this world will talk about success without ever talking about what it actually costs. They will paint you pictures of the destination without ever showing you the road. And the road is long. The road is difficult. The road will test you in ways you cannot even imagine right now. But here is what I also want you to know about the work. The work is where you find yourself. The work is where you discover who you actually are. Not who you thought you were. Not who other people told you were. But who you truly are deep down in the place that only shows itself when you are pushed to your absolute limit. The work is not the enemy of your dream. The work is the dream. The work is the journey. And the journey is where the real magic happens. Now, people ask me, Jim, what kind of work are we talking about? What do I actually have to do? And the answer is, it depends. It depends on what you want. It depends on what your dream is. It depends on what kind of life you are trying to build. But there are some universal truths about the work that apply no matter what you are going after. And I want to share those with you because these are the things that will determine whether you make it or whether you spend the rest of your life wondering what if. The first thing you have to understand about the work is that it has to be consistent. Consistency is everything. It is not about one big effort. It is not about one heroic moment. It is about doing the right things over and over again, day after day, even when you do not feel like it, especially when you do not feel like it, because motivation is temporary. Motivation is a feeling, and feelings come and go. But discipline is a choice, and discipline is what separates the people who get there from the people who almost got there. Think about it this way. Anyone can have a good day. Anyone can wake up feeling inspired and motivated and ready to conquer the world. That is easy. But can you have a good day when you are tired? Can you do the work when nobody is watching? Can you keep going when the results are not showing up yet? Can you get up and do it again tomorrow and the next day and the day after that, even when every part of you wants to quit? That is the real test. That is where character's built. That is where legends are made. Not in the moments of glory, in the moments of silence, when nobody is cheering, when nobody is watching, and you are still showing up. And here is something else about consistency that people rarely understand until they experience it for themselves. Consistency does not just produce results on the outside. It transforms you on the inside. It reshapes the way you think about yourself, because every single day that you show up and do the work, every single day that you honor the commitment you made to yourself, you are rewiring something deep inside your mind. You are proving to yourself that you are reliable, that you are trustworthy, that you are the kind of person who does what they say they are going to do. And that internal shift, that growing sense of being someone you can count on, is worth more than any external achievement. It is the foundation upon which everything else in your life is built. When you trust yourself, you become unstoppable. Not because the path becomes easier, but because you become stronger. And now let us address the elephant in the room. Let us talk about fear, because fear is the single biggest reason why people never do it themselves. Fear is the reason they wait. Fear is the reason they make excuses. Fear is the reason they hand their destiny over to someone else. And fear, let me be very clear about this, fear is not a weakness. Fear is not something to be ashamed of. Fear is a natural human biological response. Your body feels fear because your body is trying to protect you. And in that sense, fear is a gift. But fear can also be a prison. And for most people, it is. It is a prison with invisible walls. You cannot see the walls, but you can feel them. You can feel them every time you think about starting something new. Every time you think about taking a risk. Every time you think about putting yourself out there, making yourself vulnerable, saying, I am going to try this and I might fail and everyone might see me fail. That fear, that paralysis, it is the wall that keeps you exactly where you are. Now, I want to tell you something about fear that might change the way you think about it entirely. The fear does not go away, it does not disappear, it does not vanish once you become successful or once you become confident. The fear stays. It stays forever. But the difference between the people who make it and the people who do not is not that one group feels fear and the other does not. The difference is that the people who make it feel the fear and do it anyway. They feel the fear and they move forward. They feel the fear and they say, "You are here. I see you, but you do not get to make my decisions for me." You see, courage is not the absence of fear. That is one of the most powerful truths I have ever learned. Courage is acting in spite of fear. Courage is looking at the thing that terrifies you and deciding that your dream is bigger than your doubt, deciding that your future is worth more than your comfort, deciding that the pain of staying exactly where you are is greater than the pain of trying something and failing. And when you make that comparison, when you truly weigh those two pains against each other, you will always, always choose to move. Let me bring this back to the core of what we are talking about today. No one is coming. I want you to let those words sink in, really sink in. No one is coming to save you from your circumstances. No one is coming to hand you your dreams. No one is coming to do the hard work for you. No one is coming to make the sacrifices on your behalf. No one is coming to take the risk so that you do not have to. No one. Not your parents, not your friends, not your government, not the universe, not fate, not luck. And I know that sounds harsh. I know it sounds cold, but it is actually the most loving thing anyone can ever tell you. Because the moment you accept that truth, the moment you truly internalize it, you stop being a victim. You stop being passive. You stop being someone who is waiting for the world to hand you something. You become someone who goes and gets it. You become someone who builds it. You become someone who creates it out of nothing. And that person, that version of you, is the most powerful version of you that will ever exist. Think about the people throughout history who changed the world. Think about the people who built empires, who created movements, who shifted the entire direction of human civilization. Did someone come and do it for them? No. They did it themselves. They did it with their hands and their minds and their will. They did it because they decided that the way things were was not good enough, and they took it upon themselves to make it different. They did not wait for permission. They did not wait for someone to validate their vision. They simply started. They started and they kept going, and they built something that lasted. And you can do the same thing. You have that same power inside you right now. It is sitting there, dormant, waiting to be activated. And the only thing that activates it is you. The only thing that wakes it up is your decision, your commitment, your willingness to say, "I am the one. It is up to me, and I am ready." Now let me address something that comes up constantly when people start thinking about doing things on their own. The people around them, the family members who say, "That is too risky. Be careful. Are you sure about that? Why do not you just stick with what you have?" The friends who laugh, the coworkers who doubt, the little voice in the back of your mind, which by the way is often just the echo of all those other voices, that says, "Who do you think you are? What makes you think you can do this?" I want to be very careful here, because I do not want you to vilify the people in your life who express doubt. Most of them are not trying to hold you back out of malice. They are expressing doubt because they are afraid. They are afraid for you. They are afraid because their own experience has taught them that big dreams are dangerous, that taking chances leads to disappointment, that it is better to play it safe and survive than to reach for something and fall. Their doubt is a reflection of their own fears, not a judgment of your abilities. But, and this is a very important but, you cannot let their fear become your fear. You cannot let their limitations become your limitations. You cannot let the smallness of someone else's vision shrink the size of your own. Because here is the thing. The people who tell you it cannot be done have usually never tried. The people who say it is too hard have usually never done the hard thing. And the people who say you are not good enough have usually never been brave enough to find out how good they actually are. So when you hear those voices, and you will hear them over and over again, I want you to do one thing. I want you to hear them, acknowledge them, thank them even for caring, and then you set them aside. You put them in a box in the corner of your mind and you close the lid and you turn back to your work. Because their opinion of you is none of your business. The only opinion that matters, the only one that will ever truly matter, is the one you have of yourself. And if you have decided that you are capable, that you are worthy, that you can do this, then nothing anyone else says can change that. Now let us get practical for a moment. Because I do not want this to just be a speech that makes you feel good for a few hours and then fades away like morning fog. I want this to stick. I want this to actually change something in your life. And for that to happen, we need to talk about habits, because habits are the architecture of your life. They are the invisible structure that holds everything up, or lets everything fall apart. You see, success is not built in grand gestures. It is not built in one dramatic moment where everything changes overnight. Success is built in the small, daily, seemingly insignificant actions that you repeat over and over again. It is built in the book you read for 30 minutes every morning. It is built in the hour you spend working on your craft when nobody asked you to. It is built in the conversation you have with someone who challenges you to think differently. It is built in the plan you write down on paper and then actually follow. It is built in the habit of showing up. And here is what makes habits so powerful. They compound. Just like money compounds when you invest it, your habits compound over time. A small habit, repeated daily, becomes a force that is almost impossible to stop. A person who reads for 30 minutes a day will, over the course of a single year, have read dozens of books. A person who practices their craft for 1 hour a day will, within a few years, have accumulated thousands of hours of experience and skill. A person who saves a little bit of money every single day will, over time, have built a foundation of financial security that would be impossible to build all at once. The problem is not that we do not know what habits we need. The problem is that we underestimate them. We look at 30 minutes and we say, that is nothing. That is not going to make a difference. And in the moment, you are right. 30 minutes on its own is not going to change your life. But 30 minutes every day, for a year, for 5 years, for 10 years, that is everything. That is the difference between where you are now and where you want to be. And the people who understand that, the people who have truly grasped the power of the small, daily, repeated action, those are the people who quietly, without fanfare, without drama, without anyone really noticing, build extraordinary lives. So the question is not whether you can do the big thing. The question is whether you can do the small thing over and over, day after day, without giving up, without getting distracted, without letting the noise of the world pull you off course. Can you do that? If you can, then you can build anything at all. Now, I want to talk to you about patience, not the passive kind, not the kind where you sit around doing nothing and hope that things work out. I mean the active kind, the kind of patience that says, I am doing the work, I am showing up every single day, I am giving everything I have, and I trust that the results will come in their own time. That kind of patience is one of the hardest things in the world to practice. Because we live in a world of instant gratification. We want results now. We want to see the payoff immediately. We want to put in effort today and see the reward tomorrow. And when the reward does not come tomorrow, when the results are not instant, when the progress is slow and invisible, we conclude that it is not working. We conclude that we are on the wrong path. We conclude that maybe this was not meant for us. But life does not work that way. Success does not work that way. Think about a farmer. A farmer plants a seed in the ground, and for weeks, sometimes months, nothing happens. The ground looks exactly the same. There is no visible sign that anything is growing. And if that farmer dug up the seed every day to check on it, it would never grow at all. The farmer has to trust the process. The farmer has to keep tending the soil, keep watering, keep showing up, even when there is nothing to see. And then one day, without warning, something breaks through the surface, and suddenly there is life. Your life is the same way. You are planting seeds every time you take action, every time you learn something new, every time you develop a skill, every time you make a connection, every time you put in an hour of work that nobody sees, you are planting seeds. And some of those seeds will not show results for months. Some will not show results for years, but they are growing. They are growing beneath the surface, in the dark, building roots that will one day support something magnificent. So when you are in the season where nothing seems to be happening, when you are in the valley, in the quiet, in the place where it feels like all your effort is going into a void, do not stop, do not quit, do not doubt yourself into paralysis. Keep planting, keep tending, keep showing up, because the harvest is coming. It always comes. It comes for the people who refuse to stop before it does. And now I have to talk about failure, because it is going to happen. I cannot promise you that if you do this yourself, everything will go perfectly. I cannot promise you that every plan you make will work. I cannot promise you that every risk you take will pay off. What I can promise you is this: you are going to fail. At some point, in some way, you are going to fail. And the question is not whether you will fail. The question is what you will do when you do. Now, most people look at failure as the end of the road. They look at it as proof that they were not good enough, not talented enough, not worthy enough to succeed, and they let that one failure or that series of failures become the reason they stop trying forever. And I understand that impulse. I understand it because failure is painful. It is embarrassing. It shakes your confidence to its very core. It makes you feel small and vulnerable and exposed. But here's the truth about failure that I want you to carry with you for the rest of your life. Failure is not the opposite of success. Failure is part of success. Failure is actually one of the essential ingredients of success. You cannot build something great without failing along the way. You cannot develop real skill without making mistakes. You cannot find the right path without first walking down the wrong ones. Failure is not a detour. It is the road itself. Think about it. Every single person who has ever achieved anything extraordinary in this world has a story of failure behind them. Not one or two failures, dozens, hundreds in some cases. They were told no, they were laughed at, they lost everything. They made mistakes that seemed catastrophic in the moment, and then they got back up and they tried again and they failed again. and they got back up again. And at some point that nobody could have predicted, everything clicked. And suddenly the world called them a genius, called them a visionary, called them a success. But the real story, the real honest story, was not about talent or luck. It was about the refusal to let failure be the final word. So when failure comes knocking on your door, and it will, I want you to do something. I want you to look at it, and I want you to say, thank you. Thank you for teaching me something. Thank you for showing me what does not work. Thank you for making me stronger. Thank you for proving that I am alive, that I am trying, that I am in the game. Because the people who never fail are the people who never try. And the people who never try are the people who never grow. And the people who never grow are the people who arrive at the end of their lives and realize they never actually lived. The act of getting back up, that is not just part of the process. That is the process. That is the entire thing. Every time you fall and you rise, you are becoming a version of yourself that is slightly more capable, slightly more resilient, slightly more equipped to handle whatever comes next. Failure is not a wall. It is a staircase. And each time you climb one of those steps, each time you take a loss and turn it into a lesson, you are climbing higher than you were before. So do not run from failure. Do not dread it. Do not let the fear of failure be the thing that keeps you from ever trying. Because the person who has failed 10 times and gotten back up 10 times is worth 10 times more than the person who has never failed at all. That person has been tested. That person has been forged. And that person, that beautifully, gloriously imperfect person, is someone the world cannot ignore. Now let us talk about vision. Because doing it yourself, truly doing it yourself, requires that you know where you are going. You cannot build a house without a blueprint. You cannot navigate the ocean without a compass. And you cannot build an extraordinary life without a clear, vivid, detailed picture of what that life looks like. Most people have a vague idea of what they want. They say things like, I want to be successful. I want to be happy. I want to have a good life. And those are wonderful sentiments, but they are not a vision. They are not specific enough. They are not concrete enough. They are like saying, I want to go somewhere nice on vacation without ever picking a destination, buying a ticket, or packing a bag. You will never get there because you do not actually know where there is. So here is what I want you to do. I want you to sit down, really sit down with a pen and a piece of paper or whatever you use, and I want you to write down exactly what your life looks like in 5 years. Not a vague sketch, a detailed, vivid, specific picture. What do you do every day? Where do you live? What do you have? Who are you spending your time with? How do you feel when you wake up in the morning? What have you built? What have you created? What have you contributed? Write it all down, every detail, because the mind is an extraordinarily powerful tool, and when you give it a clear destination, it starts working, consciously and unconsciously, to get you there. It starts noticing opportunities that you would have missed before. It starts filtering out distractions that do not serve your vision. It starts making decisions differently because now you have a reference point. Now you have a North Star. And every choice you make can be measured against that North Star. Vision is not a luxury. Vision is a necessity. Without it, you are simply reacting to life as it comes at you. With it, you are actively shaping life into what you want it to be. And that is the difference between living and merely existing. Now, there is one investment that I want to talk about today that is more important than any stock, any piece of real estate, any business, or any financial instrument that has ever existed on this earth. And that investment is in yourself, in your mind, in your knowledge, in your skills, in your character, in your ability to think, to learn, to adapt, and to grow. You see, everything else in this world can be taken from you. Your money can be lost. Your property can be destroyed. Your job can disappear. Your relationships can change. But the knowledge you carry in your mind, the skills you have developed, the wisdom you have earned, the character you have built, nobody can ever take that from you, not ever. That goes with you everywhere. That is the one thing that is absolutely, completely, irrevocably yours. So when you are deciding where to invest your time, and time is the most precious resource you have because once it is gone forever, I want you to invest it in yourself first. Read the books, learn the skills, seek out the mentors, ask the questions, do the uncomfortable things that stretch your mind and expand your thinking. Because every hour you spend investing in yourself is an hour that is paying dividends for the rest of your life. And that is the kind of return on investment that no financial advisor in the world can match. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. Jim, I do not have time to invest in myself. I am working, I have responsibilities, I have bills to pay, I have a family to take care of, and I hear you. I understand that. But let me ask you this. How much time are you spending on things that do not matter? How much time are you spending scrolling through things that add nothing to your life? How much time are you spending in conversations that drain you? How much time are you wasting in the space between sleep and work doing absolutely nothing of consequence? The time is there. It is hiding in the cracks of your day, and most people never find it because they never look. But if you get serious, truly serious, and about investing in yourself, you will find the time. You will carve it out. You will protect it like it is the most precious thing you own, because it is. Your time, invested wisely in your own growth, is the foundation upon which everything else in your life is built. Let me share something with you about environment, because this is one of the most underestimated factors in whether you succeed or fail in doing things yourself. Your environment shapes you more than you probably realize. The people you spend time with, the places you go, the information you consume, the conversations you have, all of it is quietly, constantly, relentlessly shaping who you are and what you believe is possible. Now, if your environment is filled with people who believe in growth, who are actively working toward their own goals, who are positive and ambitious and forward-thinking, then your environment is supporting your journey. It is like swimming with the current. Everything around you is pushing you in the direction you want to go. But if your environment is filled with people who are stuck, who are complaining, who are blaming, who are comfortable with mediocrity, who genuinely do not believe that great things are possible, then your environment is working against you. It is like swimming against the current. You can still do it, but it is exhausting, and it takes everything you have just to stay in place. So here is my advice. Take an honest look at the 5 people you spend the most time with. Look at their lives. Look at their habits. Look at their attitudes. Look at what they are building or not building. And ask yourself, is this the environment I want to be shaped by? Because whether you like it or not, you are being shaped by it every single day. And if the answer is no, if you look at those 5 people and you realize that their energy, their beliefs, their habits are pulling you down, then you need to make some difficult decisions. Not cruel decisions, not permanent exile, but intentional decisions about where you spend your time and whose influence you allow into your life. This is not about being selfish. This is about being strategic. This is about protecting the most precious asset you have, your mind, your belief, your momentum, from the forces that would erode it. Because you are doing this yourself, remember? No one is coming to protect your vision for you. No one is coming to shield you from doubt. That job falls to you. And one of the most powerful ways you can do that job is by surrounding yourself with people and environments that reflect the life you are trying to build. Now, I want to talk to you about something that nobody likes to discuss, but everyone needs to hear. The courage to be different. Because here is the uncomfortable truth. If you are going to do what most people are not willing to do, you are going to have to be different from most people. Not better than them, not superior, just different. Different in your habits, your thinking, your priorities, your willingness to sacrifice short-term comfort for long-term gain. And being different is uncomfortable. It is deeply, profoundly uncomfortable. Because human beings are social creatures. We crave belonging. We crave acceptance. We crave the feeling that we are doing what everyone else is doing, thinking what everyone else is thinking, living the way everyone else is living. And the moment you step away from that, the moment you say, I am going to do this differently, you feel it. You feel the discomfort of standing apart. You feel the pull of the crowd saying, come back, be like us. Why are you making this so hard? But here's the paradox. If you do everything the same as everyone else, you will get the same results as everyone else. That is a mathematical certainty. If your inputs are the same, your outputs will be the same. So if you want a different result, if you want an extraordinary life instead of an ordinary one, you have to be willing to do extraordinary things. And extraordinary things, by definition, are not what most people are doing. They are different. They are unusual. They are the things that make other people raise their eyebrows and wonder why you are not just going along with the flow. The flow is comfortable. The flow is easy. The flow requires no courage, no sacrifice, no discomfort. But the flow also leads to a very predictable destination. And if that destination is not where you want to end up, then you need to leave the flow. You need to swim in your own direction. And that requires courage, real courage, the kind of courage that says, I would rather be uncomfortable and on my way somewhere magnificent than comfortable and going absolutely nowhere. And this brings me to something that I consider the foundation of everything we have been discussing today. Self-belief. The belief that you specifically, can do this. Not someone else. Not someone more talented, more educated, more fortunate. You, the belief that you have inside you right now, today, in this very moment, everything you need to begin. Now, self-belief is not arrogance. Self-belief is not cockiness. Self-belief is not the delusion that everything will always go perfectly and that you are somehow exempt from struggle. Self-belief is something much quieter than that. It is the quiet, steady, internal knowing that says, I can figure this out. I can learn what I need to learn. I can do what needs to be done. I may not have all the answers right now, but I have the capacity to find them. That is self-belief, and it is the most powerful fuel there is. Because here is the thing. If you do not believe in yourself, nobody else will. That is not a judgment. That is a law. It is one of the most consistent laws of human interaction. People respond to your belief in yourself. They mirror it back to you. If you walk into a room believing that you have something valuable to offer, people will sense that and they will open doors for you. If you walk into a room believing that you are worthless, people will sense that too and doors will close. So belief is not just an internal experience. It is a signal. It is a broadcast that you are sending out into the world and the world responds to it. And that means that the work of building your self-belief is not just personal work, and it is strategic work. It is one of the most important things you can do to set yourself up for success. How do you build self-belief? You build it the same way you build anything else. Through action, through small wins, through showing up and doing things that are slightly uncomfortable and discovering that you survived, through proving to yourself again and again that you are more capable than you thought, through keeping promises to yourself. Because every time you tell yourself you're going to do something and then you actually do it, no matter how small, you add another brick to the foundation of your self-belief. And over time, that foundation becomes unshakable. Now, I want to spend a few moments talking to you about sacrifice, because no honest conversation about doing things yourself can avoid this subject. Sacrifice is the currency of progress. It is what you pay in exchange for the life you want. And if you are not prepared to pay it, if you are not willing to give up things that are comfortable, things that are familiar, things that feel safe, then the life you are dreaming about will remain exactly that, a dream. But here is what I want you to understand about sacrifice. It is not about suffering. It is not about punishing yourself. It is not about depriving yourself of all joy in the name of some distant goal. Sacrifice is about choosing. It is about looking at two things. Two paths, two options, two versions of how you could spend your time, your energy, your attention, and deciding which one matters more to you. That is all sacrifice really is. It is a series of choices. When you choose to spend an evening working on your vision, you are sacrificing an evening of mindless entertainment. When you choose to save money toward your future, you are sacrificing the instant pleasure of spending it now. When you choose to wake up early and do the work that nobody sees, you are sacrificing the comfort of sleeping in. And none of those sacrifices are tragic. None of them are painful in the way that people make them out to be. They are simply exchanges. You are exchanging something small for something large, something temporary for something permanent, something that feels good today for something that will sustain you for a lifetime. The people who resist sacrifice are the same people who resist growth, because growth, by its very nature, requires you to leave something behind. You cannot grow and stay the same at the same time. You cannot become more without first releasing what is less. So embrace the sacrifice. Do not fear it. Do not resent it. See it for what it is, a sign that you are moving, a sign that you are committed, a sign that you have decided that your future is more important than your present comfort. And that is not a hard thing to decide. That is actually the easiest decision in the world once you truly understand what is at stake. Think about what is at stake. Your life, your one life. The single, irreplaceable, non-refundable life that you have been given. You will not get another one. There is no second chance, no do-over, no reset button. This is it. This is your shot. And every sacrifice you make in pursuit of the life you want to build is not a loss. It is an investment. It is you saying, I take this life seriously. I value it. I am not going to waste it on things that do not matter to me. And that is not sacrifice. That is wisdom. Let me talk to you now about something that paralyzes more people than almost anything else. The act of starting. The simple, seemingly straightforward act of beginning. You would think that starting would be the easiest part. You would think that once you have made the decision, once you have clarity on what you want, the first step would be effortless. But it is not. For most people, starting is the hardest part. It is harder than the work itself. It is harder than the struggle. It is harder than the failure that might come after. Why? Because starting means committing. Starting means putting yourself out there. Starting means saying to the world, this is what I am doing. This is what I believe in. This is who I am becoming. And that vulnerability, that exposure is terrifying. It is terrifying because it opens you up to judgment. It opens you up to criticism. It opens you up to the possibility that people will look at what you are doing and say, that is not going to work. But I want you to hear me on this. The judgment of others is the cheapest currency in the world. It costs nothing to give, and it should cost you nothing to receive. Other people's opinions are opinions. They are not facts. They are not verdicts. They are not the final word on anything. They are simply the filtered perceptions of people who are seeing the world through their own fears and limitations. And if you let those opinions stop you from starting, if you let the possibility of someone else's disapproval keep you from beginning, then you have handed the most important decision of your life over to strangers. So start. Start ugly. Start imperfect. Start before you feel ready. Start before you have all the answers. Start before you have a perfect plan, because the perfect plan does not exist. It has never existed. Every single person who has ever built something great started without knowing exactly how it was going to end. They started with faith. They started with a direction. They started with a willingness to figure it out as they went. And that is all you need to do. Start, and then keep going.